Almost 80% of the ocean hasn't been discovered. What are you most likely to find there? Sunken ships from all periods of the past. MH370. Probably just a bunch of bioluminescent creatures and small weird-looking creatures. Also trash and maybe pieces of unsolved mysteries that happened out at sea. I'd expect to find some kind of artifact or fossil as well that dates back millions of years. I want gigantic sea creatures to be real, cause that'd just be cool ASF. But sadly our friend blue whale will have to do. A lot of people killed by the mob. Cities of academic fish pondering what they'll find on the 80% of land they haven't explored. 80% of what we have discovered down there are creatures straight out of a horror story. So it's likely we'll discover something even more horrifying. What family secret was finally spilled in your family? My mom and brother are not biologically related to me. My bio mom died sometime after I was born, leaving me, my sister, and my dad behind. My brother was the one that told me. My parents never told me because they wanted to protect me from the truth. But my brother thought that was a BS reason for me to not know. I don't know if my parents know that I know the truth. But I don't want to bring it up either. My great-great-grandfather was exiled and banned from Missouri for being a sheep thief. My dad fathered a child in high school. His side of the family knew. And my mom. We found out years after he died that we have a half-sister. I started having problems with my teeth. Spontaneous abscess that resulted in multiple root canals. My dentist did some looking into what the cause might be and found some really odd abnormalities with my incisors, roots and nerves. The teeth that had been afflicting me. So he sent out requests for help to a couple of professors he knew in the field. When my next appointment came up, he was really quiet for a bit before verbally stumbling about. It turns out that what was happening with my teeth was a classic sign of inbreeding, and he was super uncomfortable giving me the news. I brought it up to my mom and she just was like, "Oh well yeah. Didn't you know?" Quote, WTF. Of course I didn't know. Turns out that not very far back in the family tree, several of my relatives decided that it was a good idea to get married to one another. And no one bothered to mention it. Ever. The small town where I live is 85% my relatives. No joke. I hadn't even met all of them. That's how many there are. I made a big point of going far away from there to meet my husband. Found out my uncle is actually my brother. My mom had him when she was so young that my grandparents raised him. My sister cheated on her husband throughout her entire marriage to the point that all three of her kids have different biological fathers. If your vision had a HUD like in video games, what information would you like to be displayed? That thing where you look at an NPC and it displays their name. A pause menu with a manual in it. Rear view for a start. Hunger bar. Sometimes I can't tell if I'm hungry or bored. I want an active weapon image box like in GTA. But it's just whatever the fuck is in my hand at that moment. A map. I have no sense of direction whatsoever. Smartphone GPS changed my life. What are some positive things happening in the world right now? The Mars rover successfully extracted oxygen from carbon dioxide on the surface of Mars. Last year Africa officially eradicated polio. The Cherokee Nation allowed genetically modified chestnut trees to be planted on land they manage, in order to restore the American chestnut tree. I think that's flippin' great. Pandas aren't endangered anymore. We have loose ends to pull on in physics. It really very cool because it could lead to some better understanding of how it all works. Why the muon G2 results are so exciting. https m.youtube.com/watch v equals 04 co 7 nw2yqo. Germany busted a dark web child pornography ring with over 400,000 users. Shut it down and arrested the hosts. What positive changes have you made in your life that you'd like to brag on a bit? What's that work you've been putting in? Keeping a clean house. Looking back on my life, it's surprising I ever had a girlfriend with how gross I kept my living spaces. I've started going to the dentist again and have been really good about my dental hygiene. There's a lot of work I need to have done. Next week I have a root canal. Then a crown. There's a tooth that needs to be pulled. And I need a few fillings. But I expected that. I was super depressed as a teen and small self-care stuff didn't matter to me at all. I didn't think I'd live this long anyway. And then I was just too ashamed to go. My teeth looked terrible. I knew wherever I would go, the dentist would probably hate me. But the dentist I ended up at was really understanding. Educational. But not in a condescending way. I'm kind of looking forward to going back. I've been better at attentively listening to others and not interrupting them. I also was bad about remembering people's names that I just met. I've been doing much better at that as well. Edit. When I meet someone new, I repeat their name a couple of times during the conversation so it sinks in. Almost 2 years out of a pretty long coke addiction. 4 years daily user. Took all my money and my good feelings. Clean as a whistle and slowly rebuilding my life. Losing weight. And I'm about to head back to my hometown for a wedding and blow everyone's mind how good I'm gonna look. Starting to work out. I am now fitter than ever. I am trying this new thing where I am asking for help when I need it and reaching out to loved ones for support instead of drowning in my problems and reacting with indirect self-harm like drinking and eating too much. I mean, I'm still doing that part, but at least this time I've reached out before hitting bottom. So I've got that going for me, which is nice. What's the stupidest thing you've ever heard someone say? If the earth is round, how does the sun get to the other side? I still don't know the fuck that girl was thinking. I have a photogenic memory. Was stargazing with a mate one night out camping. He said dead serious and sober. Do you think there are like other planets up there floating around in space? Quote. I didn't know how to reply. In an undergrad criminal justice class we were discussing punishment for sexual assault related crimes in comparison to punishments for other crimes. A guy in the class raised his hand and said that those who rape people are less culpable than those who rob, burglarize people because the robbery victims, unlike rape victims, don't ask to be robbed. I'm happy to say that professor ripped him a new one for that. But on the other hand, he still said that. How do fish breathe when they are eating cabbage underwater? Quote. Coming from the new guy in the class to the bio professor in HS. My GF said she had to keep refilling her fishbowl, which is in direct sunlight all day, with water because the fish kept drinking the water. What gets you out of bed in the morning? The dog needs to be emptied. My job. If I can make it to January 2022, I can retire with a state pension. They can ask pretty much whatever they want of me until then, and I'll be there with bells on. Unless they say no bells. Of course. I'm 60, and I realize that I have a finite number of days left. I'd rather be awake than asleep. I need money. Dog. He licks my face and I wake up, then I lick his face. My cat. Insistent on breakfast. What's the weirdest thing society accepts as normal? Buying cheap knick-knacks from sites like Wish and then throwing them straight in the trash because they're garbage. And then going, oh well, whatever, it was only $3. And then buying more. How little actual privacy do we have? Mass surveillance and job interviews. The egregious wasting of food, especially at restaurants. It seems like there should be ways to funnel this food to those in need instead of just throwing it out. The boss ringing on days off is becoming more acceptable to some. The ball and chain, hate my wife trope. If you don't like it, then don't get married. It's not that hard. Edit to say, yeah, I know people say things jokingly. I'm talking about people that actually feel that way about their so. And actually talk shit on them for wanting to consult before making plans.
Subscribe, my brothers.